Welcome to Next Radio with Broadcast Bionics, innovative solutions for creative people.
I'm going to be talking about turning art into science, and with its snappy subtitle featuring those really exciting buzz phrases such as research, data, effectiveness and radio advertising, I'm sure you'll agree it's the perfect light-hearted and fun session to lead us easily into lunch. Yeah, you know, data can be exciting at times, and I hope that in the course of this, I will demonstrate that. Sorry, there's my title. Right, but before I go on into the detail of it, I just want to briefly explain a little bit about the RAB. For those of you who don't know, the RAB is funded by the majority of commercial radio stations, and our job, put simply, is to get more advertisers spending more money on radio more often. And we do that, as we call it, through sharing Britain's love of radio with advertisers. So that basically involves reminding people about the medium's enduring appeal with its listeners, bringing to life why that is a beneficial environment for them to place their advertising in, and helping them get the most from their radio investment through creative development. So back to the session, turning art into science. The title might suggest that I'm going to be talking about turning base radio ads into the purest gold award-winning audio. But frankly, I'm an ex-media man. That's not my area of expertise. And there are other people on this agenda today who are far more qualified to talk to you about that. No, what I'm going to be covering is about raising the bar for all of that sort of weak, ineffective, promotional advertising that just weighs down the schedules, moving it from being ineffective to a more effective level, and hopefully making it a slightly less distressing experience for the majority of listeners. Why am I able to talk about this? Well, actually, I'm in possession of lots of data, which I get through the RAB's ongoing radio campaign effectiveness measurement tool called RadioGauge. And just a little bit of background on RadioGauge. Since its launch in January 2008, it's measured 450 campaigns in total. We'll be doing our 500th campaign this year. And we measure at something like a rate of 3 every week. And it gives the advertisers whose campaigns we measure information about their brand awareness, ad awareness, brand consideration, brand health measures, all the sort of stuff you'd normally get on some kind of brand tracking survey. But additionally, it starts looking at creative development and analyses and quantifies the impact of their creative execution. There are 2 basic layers of information we get out of RadioGauge. Firstly, in terms of individual campaigns, each advertiser that gets measured gets a detailed presentation about their own individual campaign results. They get benchmarked against overall RadioGauge averages and also relevant advertisers from the same product category as them. And as I said, we do this creative development recommendation, which is based around our 5 Eyes creative evaluation process. One slide on this. The 5 Eyes looks into how involving the ad is, how clear is it who's speaking to the listener, that's identity. Does it make the listener feel at least as positive about the brand as they did before? That's impression. Does it clearly get across the information it needs to get across? Information. And finally, does the listener hear it as part of a wider media or radio campaign, and therefore does it benefit from a media multiplier effect? That's integration. And the way we analyse this is ask questions, play the audio, get it scored by the listeners, and that means we can do comparisons in this sort of way. Now, RadioGauge at this level has been really well received by advertisers. They really value the data they get back, particularly this element of it, and we can prove that when you look at all the advertisers who have been measured on RadioGauge, their spend is definitely going in the right direction. And it's also returned a very good ROI for the radio industry. The other value it brings to the radio industry is from the aggregated data we get out of it. If we've measured 450 campaigns, there's a hell of a lot of information we can start to gather and pull together to get some new learning. To do that, we've created a database called RadioGauge Access, which literally stores and brings together all of that information across all of the campaigns. And at a very top level, that allows us to maybe look at the impact of radio campaigns amongst younger audiences compared to older audiences, or perhaps we can start to break it down by sector. But the new feature that we've introduced is a creative analysis section. And this basically involved one member of my team who sadly has gone slightly insane after doing this, but he listened to all 450 radio ads back to back encoded them on the basis of the incidence of something like 23 different individual creative features. So creating an additional 10,000 data points within this. So that means we can start to cut data in many different ways, and that's what I'm going to talk through today. It's still early stages for us, I have to say. We've got a long way to go down this path, and I think the more data we collect, the more learning we'll get. But for the time being, we've got 5 areas that we've sort of touched on, and I'm going to go into detail on today. I won't run through these. I have to say, they are predominantly advertising focused, but maybe there's some stuff in there that's going to be of value for people who are involved in making and producing promotional trails. So let's have a look. So number 1, we needed to sort of be able to prove, I think, if we wanted to make sense of all this, that there was a clear link between creativity and effectiveness. Now, the way we did this was we looked at all of the ads with the highest 5 eyes score, i.e. the ones that perform best creatively based on our RadioGauge research, and compared their average effectiveness to the bottom 20% of ads with the lowest 5 eyes score. And this is what we found. Yes, basically, I'm not sure if there's a reveal on here. Things seem to... the lines haven't quite come out on here. I did it on PowerPoint, not Keynote. But basically, this line should be here. What we found was the ads with the top 20% scores on 5 eyes terms outperformed the norms for effectiveness by about 11%. Those with the bottom 20% of 5 eyes scores underperformed the norms by about 1%. So overall, a 12% differential, 12 percentage points differential, purely down to creativity. Now, I suspect that everyone in this room understands the importance of creativity. This just reinforces it. But the really important question is, from a radio advertising perspective, if we all know and believe this, why are so many ads ineffective? To analyse this, we started off by looking at what the most commonly used creative features were. Here are the top 3. So running across the whole RadioGauge database, 82% of ads featured a neutral or an RP accent. I don't mean people talking with a plum in their voice, but no sort of recognisable regional lilt to it. 62% used a new creative route, and 60% used a male voice. Nothing wrong with that. I'm sure if any of you listen to commercial radio on a regular basis, that will seem quite familiar to you. But the key question is, are these features effective? To analyse this, we looked at their incidence in the top 20% of creatively performing ads, and took away their incidence in the bottom 20% of creative performing ads, what we called the net creative influence. And this is what we found. Basically, particularly when it comes to neutral accent or male voice, they don't seem to have any real impact in terms of effectiveness. And indeed, with the new creative route, it seems to have a negative impact. It's much more prevalent amongst the campaigns that don't perform as well. So if that's the case, if that sort of gives us a sense of why aren't radio ads more effective, what sort of features actually do make a difference? You may remember this picture from Chris Goldson's presentation. We didn't collude about it. So let's have a look at the top features. Once again, using this net creative influence measure, these are the top 5 or the top most effective creative features that appear in the better performing ads. So established creative music linked with TV, voice actor linked with TV. I think all of these things are stuff that enable the listener to instantly begin to recognise who it is that's speaking to them. There's a sense of familiarity in there, and that seems to be important. Are people using them? Actually, they are, and I have to be honest, since we originally did this analysis earlier in the year, people are starting to use them more regularly, but still, in each case, less than 40% of ads are using these most effective features. So there's still a long way for us to go. Moving on to the next section, I think it's interesting that a couple of these areas are linked to TV, and at the RAB we often get asked about, what creative features work best alongside TV, and that's what this next section is about. So, in this case, I've used indices. So if we see an index of 407, it means that music linked with TV was 4 times more prevalent, or occurred 4 times more often in the best performing ads than it did in the least best performing ads creatively. And as we look across this, we can see that it's referring to stuff that is on TV, music and voices and that sort of thing, that become very, very important for ads, radio campaigns that are associated with TV campaigns. I've got a couple of pieces of audio that I'd like to play now. Here's the first one.
Alexander here at Silvertail Retirement Home in village of Mirkovo to see how comparethemarket.com have affected all these residents. Igor, Grigor, how has comparethemarket...
Comparethemarket.com? No, comparethemarket.com. Comparethemarket.com. Comparethemarket. Meerkat.
So sad. Please, for hard-hearing residents of Mirkovo, visit comparethemarket.com. Simples.
Right, so simple. So I don't know, did everyone see a meerkat in their head there? Hopefully you would have done. And I hope there's another piece of audio here when I click this button.
Mum?
Yes?
You know how Cocoa Pops turn the milk chocolatey?
Yes.
What happens?
Well, you see... well, there are these little milkmen in the bowl.
Right.
And they all start dancing and spinning round and round, singing, I got the power! And they mix up the Cocoa Pops and milk, and then these...
Cocoa Pops and milk. You've got to wonder, what goes on in that bowl?
Milkmen spin around and put their umbrellas together and
Mum?
yes?
Can I have some Cocoa Pops?
Okay, Cocoa Pops seem to have managed to fit all of those elements in, but actually it was interesting with Cocoa Pops because for years Kellogg's wouldn't use TV, we wouldn't use radio because of this challenge of we have a visual campaign. The whole product benefit is about turning the milk chocolatey. How do you do that on radio? And I think by linking with the TV, I don't know about you, but I started to see milkmen dancing with umbrellas and the sky turning chocolatey and that sort of thing. It does the job really, really well with the sonic device at the end, just to remind you of who it's for. So that's stuff about radio campaigns used alongside TV, but there's a lot of radio advertising that doesn't have a TV campaign to associate itself with. So what features become important then? I forgot about this. Sorry, I'm good at this, aren't I? I sent this to James yesterday and said, can you put it in? And then I checked with him this morning and he said, I haven't put it in yet, so I've asked him to put it in. Actually, I just want to go back to that thing about seeing pictures in your head when you hear audio that links to TV. We call it the virtual TV effect, and actually there's some brain science that backs it up. In our recent Media in the Mood of the Nation study, we did some EEG experiments to assess people's engagement with radio advertising. And when we played people ads that had strong music or voice links with TV, it was really interesting. We saw this thing happening at the back of their brain, which is where the visual cortex is. And the guys we were working with, it says, yeah, actually, maybe that is evidence. Scientific proof that the virtual TV effect really does happen through audio that relates to it. Anyway, I've gone past that. I've gone on to ads that aren't associated with TV campaigns. And here they are. What features become important? Actually, what becomes much more important here is about established campaigns and consistency. Because you can't refer to other stuff, it's about building up your images and reference points, maybe across different executions within a single campaign, or maybe across a long-running campaign that's been going for a long time. And I'm going to play a piece of audio here, and it'll be interesting to see how many of you flinch.
Autoglass repair, autoglass replace.
Gavin, 30, technician for Autoglass.
When you get your chip windscreen repaired by Autoglass, it's quick and hassle-free. We can come to you to do the job, and if you fully comp, it's usually free. And it won't affect your no claims bonus.
Make just one call direct to Autoglass and we'll take care of everything. On 0800 234 234 or visit autoglass.co.uk.
Autoglass repair, autoglass replace.
Okay, now that's, I know that makes people flinch sometimes, particularly people working in the radio industry or the ad industry at a wider level. But it is an incredibly long-running and successful campaign. We measure it regularly on RadioGauge, and it, despite what people think, it doesn't actually annoy the listener that much. We never get measures driving up annoyance levels or anything like that. Autoglass have developed a construct that seems to work really, really well. And they seem to be broadening out in a way that sort of keeps it fresh as well. Interesting as well, they use Gavin, although they broadened it out a bit, but Gavin was, you know, a good brummy voice on the radio. Nice to have one. And that's
Autoglass repair.
We don't want to listen again, do we? I know radio's a frequency medium, but that's ridiculous. Right, so Gavin is a Brummie accent, and that sort of relates to the next level of data that I'm going to look at, which is people often ask us about voices. Now, within the data that we've recoded, we do have coded ads based on regional accents, celebrity voices, and that sort of thing. I'm sorry to say that at this stage, we don't have enough data points to make any conclusive claims about the effects of different regional accents. But we have got some stuff on voice gender. And we've looked at the impact of different voices, male and female voices, on the two sexes. by sector. And I'm going to start by looking at the motors sector here. I'll briefly explain this. This is ads that featuring a female voice, the lilac, and the green is ads featuring a male voice. And then this is their impact on men and their impact on women. And this is variance from the effectiveness norm. So what this suggests is that actually, when it comes to the motors category, female voices used in ads seem to have a much less positive influence on men in terms of effectiveness of outtake than, for example, male voices on women. And actually, we see that coming through also in retail as well. Now, to me, what that sort of suggests is if you want to appeal exclusively to men or exclusively to women, then maybe use those voices. However, if you're trying to appeal to both sexes, then maybe a male voice is going to be the most effective route through for you. Not at all times, but this data suggests that over time, that would be the most effective approach. And I have one piece of audio here to sort of give some wider context to that claim.
There's make-up coffee and break-up coffee and wake up at the crack of dawn coffee. There's office romance coffee. When I was your age coffee. And can I buy you a cup of coffee? But no two coffee moments ever feel the same. So even though all our coffees are made with espresso from freshly ground Arabica beans, each one's special. McDonald's full bean. Cappuccino, latte and espresso. For people who love good coffee.
Okay, so an ad talking about coffee occasions, I think, has a very different feel within it, featuring a male voice than if it had a female voice. I realise that I'm pushed for time, so I'm going to quickly move through to, following on the theme of most of these presentations today, what are our top 3 recommendations based on the data that we've drawn out? Actually, the creative process is important. Spend time, crucially, on it, and money where you need to. It will make a big difference. Develop a consistent audio construct that works for the brand. That sort of challenges some of the points that Steve made earlier, but I think in terms of the advertising world, consistency and formats actually do work. Music, voices, what sort of gender is important for you, and sonic brand devices. And then use it consistently. You will get bored of it before the listener does, and I think Autoglass is a classic example of that.
Sweetheart, cab's in.
Here's a piece of audio.
Do you think these trousers make my bum look fat?
No, they look all right.
All right, just all right. So you think my bum's fat?
No, you said that, I didn't.
Do you think it looks fat?
No, love, you look gorgeous, okay? Now come on, the cab's waiting.
You don't think they look too tight?
Well, no, look. Okay, maybe you should wear something different underneath, you know.
What?
Well, I mean, you know, your underwear, it's all sort of folded and creased up.
I'm not wearing any.
Happiness is a cigar called Hamlet, the mild cigar.
Okay, sorry, the reason I played that was just to sort of demonstrate formats actually can be really creative. Every creative in town wanted to work on that campaign. So that's pretty much it for me. Just one ad for a lunchtime. We are running a video booth type operation downstairs, and we'd really like to get your input into our next big creative research project, which is about technology in radio and where it's all going, opportunities and benefits for advertisers and listeners. And please go down at lunchtime and spend a couple of minutes just filming for us. Maybe I'll be back next year if they'll have me back after this. Thank you very much, everyone.